Hey, I'm Slopcore, and LEGO Star Wars has always been known as a company who puts a lot of love, faith, and money into all of their projects. And I've always respected them for their dedication to producing modular products to such a rigorous standard as to be used in science and engineering, which are important to human advancement. But since LEGO Star Wars Lord of the Rings came out now about 12 years ago, it begs the question: in a world where the current owners of Tolkien's estate are content shitting and farting over his grave for as much money as we will throw at them, does it hold up? Well, speaking to my experience, without even beginning the campaign, I was off to a rough start. I had just opened this, but there's an intro immediately when you open it. I had changed the volume. I had fixed the volume. I thought I had. Alright, well, just turn it down. We'll watch this and I'll fix the volume. You can turn it back up. Sorry. Oh, wow. Yeah, that was great. Holy shit. Yeah, I had changed. I turned this all the way down to 2, and that didn't save. 1280. It starts you off at 1280 resolution. This game was made in like 2009 or some shit like that. Now, despite the game's inability to save the audio levels, the audio is one of, if not the most charming part of this game. But that's not really fair to say, because the entire soundtrack, as well as a vast majority of the dialogue and sound effects, are taken directly from the films.
It began with the forging of the great rings, but they were all of them deceived, for another ring was made. One ring to rule them all. I gotta hide!
The prologue isn't too far off from a normal level, though some points do kinda act like a tutorial, with one of the first major lessons being that the game does not take itself too seriously, which I think is important for a story that is both serious in its own nature and taken very seriously by its fandom. The LEGO Star Wars adaptation of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King features some moments of such ridiculously backhanded comedic relief that is just silly enough.
Victory was near. But the power of the ring could not be undone.
I have to fight Sauron? What the fuck, dude? No! What the hell? Okay. To entertain the average gamer, and also provide such a juxtaposition to the original films as to remind the die-hard fan that this is not the same thing, and need not ruin that precious internal visualization of their most beloved series, while I think remaining very respectful and faithful to the originals. And that may be a tough balance to strike with touchy fans, but LEGO Star Wars really seems to nail it with that sort of thing, and it is because they handle it with grace and tastefulness. And I really wish that were the end of it, but more on that later. For now, we will just focus on the main campaign. The tutorial really kinda sums up literally everything you will do throughout the whole game. As you battle in the Valley of Gorgoroth with Elendil, Elrond, and Isildur, you learn how to use your different weapons to interact with the objects and environment, you learn how to fight bosses, how to switch between your characters to find a way to get your team through different obstacles, and how to engage with the classic LEGO Batman Arcane Asylum mechanic of destroying and rebuilding blocks into incredibly convenient ways to progress. And so, after scaling Mount Doom and witnessing the resolve of men faced with the most existential threat of all time,
cast it into the fire! Destroy it!
No.
Isildur!
More cinematics play, and then the player is tossed into the most charming part of this game, the open world. So charmed by it was I, in fact, that not even realizing it was an open world and not just the next level, I spent an entire hour in the Shire destroying everything and everyone. They think I'm not gonna try to explore every corner of this. Oh, I do have control over the camera. Oh, I wasn't expecting that from a 2004 game. That's so good. I can punch things too, that's great. Eventually...
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
I would find the next mission, and just like that, Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin were on their way to Bree with Black Riders right on their tail. And fun Lord of the Rings fact, which not even the movies really do a good job of displaying, at the time of Bilbo's 111th birthday, Frodo was about 33 years old, and when Gandalf would return bearing the news about Bilbo's ring, he would be about 50 years old, meaning 17 years had passed between those two story events, or just about the same amount of time that it's taking Team Cherry to finish up Silksong and get it ready for release. My favorite thing about the Fellowship of the Ring, in contrast to the other two volumes, be they the films or the books, is that the time not spent on the major action like Helm's Deep and Isengard and Osgiliath and Minas Tirith and the Black Gate and the Two Towers and the Return of the King, which is all awesome in its own right, but in the Fellowship of the Ring, that time instead goes to some very dense exposition, world building, character development, and history. And LEGO Star Wars captures almost none of that. But that's okay, because doing silly little things like tossing rocks at birds and shit to distract the Black Rider while in that established world is still a lot of fun. I think the cutscenes are good. I like all the different colors. What was I saying? Wow, that's worked conveniently. Oh, nice. Nice. The Fellowship is the longest of the three books, and this game hides that fact quite adequately. Though, that's just a consequence of my aforementioned point, and while it makes for a more easily digestible gameplay experience, it does kind of make it seem like this whole story takes a mere day or two, when it actually took about a year or two, depending on how you look at it. In the second half of the first level, we are riding to Isengard as Gandalf, and for some reason, the cutscene, while mostly accurate, omits one fairly incredibly important detail.
Your love of the halfling's leaf has clearly slowed your mind.
But we still have time.
Smoke weed every day.
After this cutscene, the player is thrown directly into a pretty cool boss fight, where they will learn to do something that they'll have to do a lot in this game. Spamming buttons. A lot. But the boss fight against Saruman is still fun, and very impressive visually for a game made in the early 2000s. After this, you go back and finish the mission up as the Hobbits and are dumped into the second major area on the map, Bree. Here is where I would find my first side quest. This guy wants a mithril shovel, and despite being the most rare and expensive material in Middle-earth, the Hobbits were able to head right over to the blacksmith and fulfill his request pretty easily. Mithril is just one of the collectibles in this game that you get from doing different things as you go along, like getting True Adventurer on the levels, and with it the player can make a large variety of different items and equipment here that they can both use themselves or complete side quests with. And if you want to 100% this game, this right here is going to become very familiar to you, because this is the sequence that plays when you forge an item. Jump up and down on the bellows to fire up the furnace. Is that not what I'm paying this asshole for? Right? Thing looks pretty nice. There's probably a lot of cool weapons we can build. My footage is sorry.
What in the hell?
And this sequence plays every single time you would like to forge an item. Now, I was curious about the math, and if you don't take about 7 seconds or so complaining about having to do the blacksmith's job for him, this whole sequence takes about 50 seconds. And being that there are 30 mithril items that you need to forge in this game, that means that if you're going to craft all of them, you're going to spend 25 minutes of your playthrough just doing this over and over. So, instead of doing that shit, I decided to head right over to the next mission over at the Prancing Pony, where our hobbits would meet with Strider and leave for Weathertop with the Wraiths swift at their behinds. And now it's time for fun Lord of the Rings fact number 2. Only 3 days prior to Strider bringing the hobbits to Weathertop, Gandalf, after his escape from Orthanc, was attacked there by the Black Riders. Gandalf would later explain at Rivendell that they, being the Nazgul, felt the coming of my anger and they dared not face me while the sun was in the sky. But they closed round at night, and I was besieged on the hilltop. In the old ring of Amansul, I was hard put to it indeed. Such light and flame cannot have been seen on Weathertop since the war beacons of old. Solidifying in the beginning of this first installment just how badass this 55,000-year-old demigod being really is. So anyway, after the Weathertop mission, I would prance Frodo over to Rivendell as Arwen. Go back to Weathertop, Frodo. You like it there? And watch even more cutscenes. And one of my favorites, the Council of Elrond. This chapter is heavily abbreviated for the films, the resulting scene of which even more abbreviated for LEGO Star Wars here. Many people remember this scene for...
I will take the ring to Mordor.
And also...
And my axe.
And don't realize that in the book, this is where you learn a rich history of Middle-earth and the historic characters involved. For example, this is where the reader, quote-unquote, watches the scene from the beginning of the Fellowship, and it is where the importance and gravity of their situation really starts to set in. In the film, when Gimli strikes the ring, the audience sees very clearly it can't be destroyed by conventional tools, that Frodo is already bound to it, and that Sauron can feel its presence. Peter Jackson had to take a pretty drastic artistic liberty in that moment, and it paid off exceptionally well. And, obviously, by doing the exact same thing, LEGO Star Wars is able to capture that exact same feeling. But with each level of brevity, we lose something, and in LEGO Star Wars, we lose out on a lot of emotion and historical context in one of my favorite moments of this scene in the film.
This is no mere ranger. He is Aragorn, son of Arathorn. You owe him your allegiance.
Aragorn. This is Isildur's heir.
And heir to the throne of Gondor.
Havodad, Legolas.
Gondor has no king. Gondor needs no king.
In this brief 45 seconds, we learn not only Strider's origins and identity as Aragorn, we see reinforcement of his mysterious connection to the elves. We see Boromir's shock at Aragorn's appearance here, and perhaps fear of him, or fear of the power he would try to take. We see a concerning level of spite and anger in Boromir over this, and also contempt in Aragorn's face. But then sadness, maybe. Sad that the race of men will not accept him. Regret, maybe, for choosing the life of exile. Fear, perhaps, thinking he may have to pursue that power pretty soon. And also, Boromir telling Legolas,
Gondor has no king.
And then telling Aragorn,
Gondor needs no king.
Comes with some pretty significant underlying implications and context. The elves believe that men have grown weak, scattered, divided, and entirely responsible for Sauron's return. Which, I mean, how can you blame them?
Destroy it!
In fact, that is one of the main reasons that we see them leaving Middle-earth for the Grey Havens in droves during the first movie. Boromir is telling Legolas Gondor has no king as a way to aggressively remind him that Gondor has stood for now hundreds of years at the border of Mordor, staving off Sauron's forces, and that with little help from the elves. And he then tells Aragorn Gondor needs no king to perhaps suggest to Aragorn by not already pursuing the responsibilities of his bloodline, instead, in Boromir's eyes, choosing to do basically fuck all instead of assisting Gondor at its darkest age, he, Aragorn, has lost the chance at their allegiance. In the book, Boromir is far less of an asshole, but the relationship between him and Aragorn is too complex to put on screen. The films had to make some sacrifices, and Boromir's likability was unfortunately one of them. However, because of this, the films are able to provide such a dense context in such short amounts of time because of the brilliant writing and performance of all the actors. So you may ask, what artistic liberties did LEGO Star Wars take for this incredible scene? Well, Legolas brushes Gimli's beard with a comb. Now, I've kind of gone on a tangent here, and we could go back to talking about the game, but that's kind of the problem. Ignoring the fact that this game is Lord of the Rings, the things you do in the first couple of levels in this game are the same things you will do in every level for the rest of this game. And they are the same things you will do in the open world, which is fairly tiny, even compared to the games from its same time period, and is rife with the same repetition as the story missions. The collectibles and secrets are all just the same obstacles from the story levels. Dark spot? Well, Frodo has the Vial of Galadriel. Hole in the wall? Gimli or a hobbit to climb through it. Target? Shoot it with Legolas. Over and over and over and over. The side quests that won't have you spending your whole evening with the blacksmith just have you go fetch an item hidden in one of the quests you've already played. And given that this is a collect-a-thon platformer, that would be awesome. For a mostly dying genre to live on in these LEGO Star Wars games, which have a lot of care put into them, is great. I have a special place in my heart for games like this, as they bring me back to being a kid playing games of a simpler time. So I was actually excited to 100% it, but therein lies yet another problem. This game is riddled with bugs, like physically impossible jumps. Holy shit, this is bad and annoying. Your character doing things for no reason, like Gollum jumping off the climbable wall at the top of this incredibly tedious climb, which I had to Google to check if it was even possible. Gollum, yes. On the wall. Do not touch anything except the analog stick. No! No! Or the fact that some achievements, like for jumping into Mount Doom off the bridge as a Sealdor, isn't even achievable. I did this mission about 5 times, even reinstalling my game, and couldn't get it to work, and I tried everything. After Googling this, I learned I'm definitely far from the only one experiencing these problems. Really good open world, extremely buggy game. It's to the point I can hardly finish some quests collectibles. Unplayable due to flashing water glitch bug. This game is unfortunately really broken. Would be nice if they would remake this like they did LEGO Star Wars. Do not buy. So buggy I have to restart multiple times to beat one level. Unplayable due to a buggy glitch. I got through 2 levels before reaching a point where the game crashes as soon as I move on. I do love a good high-quality game that was thoroughly tested before being released. Want to do a puzzle where you have to push something from A to B? Nope, it just randomly takes off and stays 4 meters in the air. You have to reload the game now. When this happens in a level, you can do the whole thing over again. Want to climb a wall as Gollum? Nah, it just starts randomly jump off without the player pressing any button. It did that to me multiple times today. So, if just being Lord of the Rings is the major thing this game has going for it, and that's only because they basically copy and pasted a heavily abbreviated version into their own brand, we will finally address the question that the thumbnail hopefully made you click for. Does this game actually hold up? Well, considering that over the years, Lord of the Rings video games have largely gotten worse gameplay and more detached from the words Tolkien actually wrote, I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's pretty fun.